What's up, everyone? Today, we're diving into one of the most dramatic firings in military history. Picture this. It's World War II. American troops are fighting in North Africa, and suddenly the Supreme Commander, Dwight Eisenhower himself, looks at one of his generals and says, "Get him out of here." This is the unbelievable story of General Lloyd Fredendall, a man who rose to command thousands of soldiers only to become one of the most spectacular leadership failures of the war. So buckle up, because this story has everything: ego, disaster, and the lesson in what not to do as a leader. Let's meet our main character. Lloyd Fredendall was a U.S. Army officer who, on paper, looked perfect for the job. He was experienced, confident, and had worked his way up through the ranks. When America entered World War II, Eisenhower needed commanders he could trust. In 1943, Fredendall got his big shot: command of the U.S. Second Corps in North Africa. We're talking thousands of soldiers under his leadership, fighting against the legendary German Afrika Korps. But here's where things start to go sideways. While his troops were preparing for combat on the front lines, Fredendall made a choice that would raise serious eyebrows. He set up his headquarters 70 miles behind the front lines. That's right, 70 miles away from where the actual fighting was happening. And it gets better. He ordered engineers to dig tunnels and build an elaborate underground bunker for him. These engineers could have been building defenses for the soldiers who were about to face German tanks. Instead, they were making sure the general had a nice, safe hideout. Flag number one, right? But trust me, it only gets worse from here. February 1943, Tunisia, a place called Kasserine Pass. This is where everything absolutely fell apart. The German forces, commanded by the legendary Field Marshal Rommel, the Desert Fox himself, launched a massive coordinated attack. And the American troops? They were completely unprepared. Now, where was General Fredendall during all this? Still sitting in his bunker, 70 miles away. He had no real sense of what was happening on the battlefield. He couldn't see the chaos, couldn't feel the urgency, couldn't make real-time decisions that could save lives. Instead, he was sending confusing, contradictory orders by radio. Move this unit here. No, wait, send them there. Split up this battalion. Spread out the tanks. There was no coherent strategy, no clear plan, just chaos. The result? The Battle of Kasserine Pass became the first major defeat for American forces in the European theater. Thousands of American soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. Tanks were destroyed, equipment was lost, and morale absolutely shattered. This wasn't just a military setback. This was America's first real test against the German war machine in Europe, and they failed spectacularly. And a huge part of that failure came down to one man's terrible leadership. Now let's talk about Eisenhower. As Supreme Commander, he was getting reports about the disaster at Kasserine Pass, and he knew he had to act fast. Eisenhower personally visited the battlefield. He talked to soldiers, he interviewed officers, he saw the wreckage, and very quickly, he identified the problem: Fredendall. But here's the thing: firing a general isn't like firing an employee at a regular job. There's politics involved. There's ego. There's reputation. Military careers are on the line. And there's always the question, what message does this send? But Eisenhower understood something crucial. He understood that leadership isn't about protecting people's feelings or worrying about embarrassment. Leadership is about the mission. It's about the soldiers who are putting their lives on the line every single day. So in March 1943, just weeks after Kasserine Pass, Eisenhower made his call. He told his staff in no uncertain terms, "Get him out of here." Fredendall was immediately relieved of command. And who did Eisenhower bring in to replace him? General George Patton, one of the most aggressive, effective combat commanders of the entire war. Patton came in like a hurricane and completely transformed the Second Corps in a matter of weeks. Leadership isn't about titles or ranks. Fredendall had the stars on his uniform. He had the authority. But he didn't have what truly matters: the ability to inspire, to make tough calls under pressure, and to be there for his people when it mattered most. Real leadership means being in the trenches with your team, not hiding 70 miles away in a bunker. Accountability is everything. When Eisenhower saw that something wasn't working, he didn't make excuses. He didn't wait and hope things would improve. He took decisive action, even though it was difficult and controversial.
That's what great leaders do. They make the hard calls. Ego is the enemy.
Fredendall thought he knew better than everyone else. He thought his rank meant he didn't need to be on the ground with his troops. He thought he could command from a distance. But war doesn't care about your ego. Reality has a way of humbling you real quick. And finally, this story reminds us that failure, when handled correctly, can lead to success. After Fredendall was removed and Patton took over, the American forces in North Africa went on to achieve victory. They learned from their mistakes. They adapted. They became the fighting force that would eventually help win the war. So there you have it, the story of General Fredendall, the man who Eisenhower said had to go. Fredendall was shipped back to the United States and given a training command, where he couldn't do much damage. Meanwhile, under Patton's leadership, the troops that had been humiliated at Kasserine Pass became battle-hardened warriors who helped defeat the Axis powers. This story teaches us that leadership is earned through action, not given through rank. It's about being there when it counts, making tough decisions, and always putting your people first. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what historical story you want to hear next. There are so many incredible tales from World War II and beyond. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.